Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this episode where we carry on, or I complete the work of building the drill tower for the fire station, and you get to see the fire station with its lights all working. We take a look at the power distribution board that I'm using to dim the lights in the fire station, but more importantly we return back to doing some scenic work in and around the terraces of houses at Weathertop station. Can I take this opportunity just to say welcome to all my new subscribers? Had quite a few since the last video. Really pleased to have you along. If you're coming to this and you're not a subscriber, then please do subscribe and hit the bell notification next to the subscribe button, which will tell you when I'm uploading. But let's get on with the video and take a look first of all at the power distribution board. In my last video I mentioned that I was going to be getting a new power distributor board, or rather I didn't, because I couldn't for the life of me remember what it was called, which I purchased off of eBay. I was put onto these by Mark Ireland, who uses them on his layout, when I was talking about being able to dim some of the lights, because when I first put lights into the church a number of people thought they were rather bright, and I did buy a dimmer unit which absolutely failed to work. And so the lights, when I put them in on the station, are put through one of these power boards already. And for the fire station, I want to be able to dim the main lights that are in the upstairs and in the appliance bay, because I think they're just a bit too bright. And using this power distribution board, you can do that. The seller is based in Hong Kong, and his name on eBay is We Honest, WEHONEST. He has a very high approval rating, and I have to say on the both two occasions that I've bought, one, it arrives really quickly. I think I'd ordered it by the time the video went out last Friday. It arrived, this is a week later, and it's arrived from Hong Kong. This is what comes in the packet. On the website there's a link for an instruction sheet, which I will show you here. It's a very brief instruction sheet, but it's all you need. And I'll just talk you through the bits that I'm going to be using. I am not an electrician, and you will want to make sure before you use this that you read the instructions. But if you're using the unit on its own, you can take power in either as a DIN plug, or jack plug rather, or you can take it in through there. So this is your power in, and then this jumper here, which I've got set now to be direct feed, so whatever power is coming in there is going to come out of these terminals at this end. If the lights that were on Weathertop station were 3-volt lamps, and what you can do is take this jumper off. If I bring this up a bit, you'll see it says direct there and it says 3-volt there. So you take this off and put it on the end pin and the middle pin, and when you do that, these will then start putting out 3 volts, which is very handy and saved me doing lots of soldering of resistors, which I would otherwise have to do. And this end here are just output terminals, and as you can see there are loads of them. These are the basic screw terminals. These obviously would have a micro plug. These I think are Japanese solderless terminal plugs that come out of here. But at least according to the instructions, you should be able to output from this one distribution board on all of these, which would be really quite some power output. The other thing you can do, which I will be doing with this, the one obviously is still already put into the system, so it has power coming in, is you can daisy chain these together. And you get this cable to be able to do that, and that is obviously a fairly straightforward business. That's input, that's output. So the one that's already plugged in has a cable coming out of the output, which I'll plug into here, and that will give me power to this board from the one input that I've already got. So that's going to save me having to provide separate power to this board. And the key thing that I need is this blue section here, which is the dimmer. And that obviously just put a screwdriver in and turn that round, and that acts as your dimmer. So what I'm going to be doing now is putting this onto the layout, connecting it to the other power board, and then we'll have a go at seeing whether it does indeed dim the lights as we expect. So I'll come back to you in just a moment. Okay, well, we're back on the layout now, and you can see I've put most of the buildings back in place so you get an idea of what's going to be around the fire station. At about this point, I'll put a clip in which shows me turning the dimmer switch on the power distribution board that I've just spoken about, so you get an idea of just by how much it affects the lights. You'll see that the fire station has two additions to when you saw it last. The first is that it now has a working lamp on the front right as you look at the fire station. The second is that the lettering from Scale Model Scenery arrived, the 4mm lettering, which has been fixed on the front, so it now knows what it is, which says fire station. You may not quite be able to see that from here. And I've also built the drill tower or training tower that most fire stations have to allow firemen to practice rescuing people down ladders and in floors above ground level. I've got a montage which will come up immediately after I finish talking here, which shows you the stages of building that tower, which is really very straightforward, but it will take you through that process. So I've now largely finished the construction of the fire station and really need to get on thinking about the scenic work from the terrace houses, which I'll take and show you now, all along the back here, including doing that bit of ballasting from the end of Weathertop station round to the double slip junction that sits just outside the station. So if I zoom back a bit, work has started on that, in that the fence and wall which runs along Bagshot Row and divides it from the MPD. The second long section has now been fixed in place, so that's permanently in there now, and that gives me a really nice wall, and it's entirely fortuitous. As if you remember, originally my intention was to use the first section, which sits up here, this bit up to here, was originally going to go up onto the raised section as the dividing wall to prevent people falling off the edge. And it didn't quite look right when I put it there. And quite by chance, I put it down here just to get it out of the way while I was doing something else, and then looked at what it did. And if I come in a bit closer, I mean, I just thought it was amazing. So I then had to build the whole next load of sections and put the whole wall in. I've also, which you'll be able to see now, I fitted in the cobblestones that I was going to do. That's Metcalf paper. It's actually the card, not paper. It's a quite nice thick card, and it's been put down in a grid pattern. If I take these two properties off, you'll see what I mean. It's been put down in a grid pattern, principally because I need to be able to lift this board off. This is the board with all the points and point motors, or other point motors and wiring underneath, and if I need to get into that at any time, this whole board can come off. And if I'm going to do that, I can't have anything that's rigidly fixed down. And I really don't need to have card on the bits where the houses are going to be sitting on top, because they'll cover everything over. So what the next piece of work for me to do, and I'm going to go back to the desk in a moment just to talk through how I propose to set about doing the gutters and downpipes, is to fix together these buildings into blocks. So there'll be 2 blocks of 6. Those 6 will be fixed together, those 6 will be fixed together, and 2 lots of 5. And they can just be lifted on and lifted off, because once they're down in place, they're not going anywhere. There's no reason for them to move. So I don't need to fix them down permanently. But it was always my intention that they would be put together. Some of them need a bit of TLC, because I built these probably 2 years ago while I was waiting for my baseboards to arrive. A few chimney pots have gone west, one or two others are looking wonky. So a bit of TLC whilst I'm putting a few more detailing things on these, and then that bit will be complete, and then I can start laying out the area to the station. If I can zoom back out, I can start laying out the area around the station, which I have a plan in my head, which I just need to draw up just to be sure that it will work for me. It's not going to have a big car park or anything, because I don't actually think at this point there would have been a big car park. There wasn't great private car ownership. There would be a car park, but it wouldn't be huge, but probably much more by way of public transport space. So something where buses could sit and wait, and one is there, as you can see already. So that's about it for this section, and I'll go back to the desk and talk a bit about the work that I'm going to be doing on the houses. Well, here we are back on the desk, and I've got in front of me the various things that I'm going to be using to just finish off these buildings, because they need some gutters and some downpipes, and at the back possibly some other pipes to show where water is flowing out of kitchens and the like. And given the number of buildings that I've got, the ratio kits, I would need quite a few of those. At a cost, I think, disproportionate to the benefit. And in any event, not all the parts of the ratio kits are the right length, for example, for these buildings. And so I think there'd be quite a bit of wastage, and quite a few things I know would just not look right. So I'm going to be using strip styrene to make the gutters. The gutter itself is going to be this stuff here, which is the 2.5mm half round from strip styrene. The downpipe is going to be the same thing as I used for the fireman's poles, which is has got a steel core with a plastic coating, so that gives quite a bit of strength on what is still quite a narrow thing. I think that's about 1 millimeter in diameter, maybe a little bit more. And then if I need any pipes coming out of bathrooms or the like, I've got some of the 0.75mm strip styrene rod, if this thing will focus. There we go. All of that's got to be painted up in black, obviously, and cut to the right length, and then attached. I think with this row of buildings, where I've got 4 houses, I will use a single gutter to run across the length of the 4 houses, because this isn't quite the right length to do either from one end to that end, or this end to the other. And then there will be down pipes in the center of each of the houses, so that will take the water down from the gutter for both houses. These 2 end buildings, the shops or the pubs or whatever it is they are, will have their own gutter and downpipe. At the back, I think that's going to be rather more complex. Let's take a house first of all, or two houses. These will almost certainly, well, they will have had gutters at the back, otherwise there'll just be water sloughing off all over the place. And as you can see, I can put a single gutter in the middle of the two, and then a downpipe one side or other of the building. There will need to be a gutter and downpipes on the so that will take care of that. But there will need to be some gutters, I think, on the sides. And I would also want to decide, probably from that window by the door, if I put this into the light, sort of this one, a pipe going to the gutter, because that would seem to me to be likely to be where the kitchen was. So that's going to be quite a bit of fiddly work, and I'm not going to try and do all that in time for the end of this video. I think that's very much for the next video, given the number of properties I've got to do. And then finally, stick them all together and place on the capping stones, which come as part of the kit, which I deliberately, there we go, which is this stuff here. This comes as part of the kit, and I deliberately saved them all because until I knew finally where the buildings were, I didn't want to attach these on because they can go along in a straight run at the back. To attach the downpipes, or certainly the gutters, and probably the front downpipes, I'm going to adapt a process, or well, use a process, but with finer materials, that I saw Paul Chapman use on Calgorm Hall. If you haven't seen his website, it's a 00 gauge. And I'll put a link in here to his video where he demonstrated the technique of using, he uses copper, fine strands of copper, which are then painted up to provide the means by which you can attach these by taking the copper, you wrap it round and then twist. And that gives you, obviously it holds, and it gives you, once you've done it properly, at the back, that will be cut off. And that gives you a stub that can then be inserted into the building through a drilled hole. I've had to use, obviously I'm using a much thinner material anyway. This is fine plastic covered copper wire, which I rescued from my wife, who used to do jewellery making. And this was used in some of the jewellery making. But it does the job, I think. I think that will do the job quite nicely. So, my next couple of weeks is going to be firstly giving a bit of TLC to the various buildings which have chimney pots missing, and possibly replacing one or two chimney pots that have not stood the test of time. Then fixing the buildings together and doing the capping, and finally fitting on all the downpipes. And I think that will then finish off the whole of this section, and they can then go and just sit on the layout, as I said, without any need for being fixed down permanently should I need to remove them to get to that board. So that completes this this section. There's a short running section now, and I'll come back and talk to you at the end before this episode finishes. Well, that just about wraps it up for this episode of Elvenhome. Hope you enjoyed all of what went before. As ever, if you have any comments, please do let me have them. I really enjoy getting the comments, as I've said before, and so many people have been helpful to me with things they've suggested, which have actually gone into the railway or will go into the railway when we get to do them. As I said at the start, if you've not subscribed, please do. I'm grateful to all of my subscribers. I think I'm up to nearly 1,300 now, which is really quite extraordinary, and thank you very much. And until I see you again, bye-bye.